ready.
Welcome to another episode of Buff in the Rough. Today, we'll hear from Brian Hutton about treeing rabbits, winning the Clash of Champions, and a lot more. Help me welcome Brian Hutton to the program. Well, hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm doing good, Sam. Doing real good. Glad to finally get on your podcast here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, and I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about you today and your hounds and what you've been up to. But before we get started, for people that maybe don't know Brian Hutton, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into rabbit hunting?
Yeah, I've been born and raised in Ohio. Been hunting ever since I was a boy. Back when I was a kid, though, I was the rabbit dog. My uncle, my grandpa, they tell me to go kick a brush pile, and then they shoot the rabbits. So, I didn't know anything about dogs back then, and I was working at a job. Met some people. Aaron Samsel was the fella, and we got to working together, and he got to talking about rabbit dogs and all that. And I had an old pet beagle just at the house. She'd run a rabbit, but she'd run a deer a little bit better. But we got to talking there one day, and hunting rabbit dogs came up, and I was like, well, I'd like to have a rabbit dog. I was always a rabbit dog back when I was a kid. And he goes, well, I got a male dog. I said, you got that female? I said, you can breed to him and get you litter pups, and then we started hung. After we bred them, we hung out and got to running dogs, and I kept the couple, and the one dog was my Hutton's little hunter. And then as I got to know Aaron and stuff, and then met his cousin Merritt, found out about this trial and stuff, and my dog was still a puppy, so they let me use an old blue tick. Came from the pound. They call her old Z-Dog. And they said, well, you can handle old Z-Dog in a hunt. It's my first hunt. It was at the Cashot County Beagle Club. And I'll be darned I didn't go out there and get second place with that old dog. And then, that's really all it took. It was hook, line, sinker. When you get second place, your very first hunt. And back then, the hunts were, you'd have 8 to 10 casts for every hunt. Unlike today, when you only got maybe 1-2 casts at a local hunt. Mm-hmm. So it was a big deal back then.
With the dog from the pound.
Yep, a dog from the pound, old Z-Dog, an old blue tick. And she was a rabbit dog, but so that's how I kind of got into hunting. Been married to my wife for 24 years. We've been together for 28. We have a daughter. She's getting ready to turn 18. Time flies,
Mm-hmm.
And, when I'm not running dogs, that's my hobby. The second hobby is coaching and watching my daughter play softball. So we're in the middle of travel ball, this summer. So the dogs are kind of on the back burner. They get out once or twice a week, but that's about it right now. And it's getting too hot.
Brian, how many years you been doing this?
I've been doing this for 23 years.
Wow.
So, it's been a good long ride, and I really enjoy it. I just love listening to these dogs. Mm-hmm. Just their ability just amazes me. Be able to run a little fur bearing little rabbit the way they do, it's very impressive. So
it's pretty amazing. It really is.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, as you've been doing this for 23 years, who are some of the people that have had the biggest influence on you?
The biggest influence, obviously, my grandpa Lane and my Uncle Ron, which was his brother, they initially got me into hunting, deer hunting, turkey hunting, and then they're obviously the rabbit hunting. But then when I got into the dogs, Aaron Samsel was, basically who got me into dogs, and then his cousin Merritt Robertson, I used to do some traveling. We tried some different formats. I went to some AKC large pack with him, and I ran with him for a long time. And then eventually he got out of Beagles. And then the most recent, in the last 10 years, pretty much my best friend, Matt Turner. Me and him, usually if we're at a big hunt, if I'm at a hunt, he's either there or vice versa. We typically travel together at the big hunts. So, he's a big part of my life in the dog world, and then just as a friend. So those have been my, most of my influences. And I've had, Dave McVeigh, he's been a part of, my Bigland years. And then the old timers of the old Coshocton County Big Club, old Roy Passmore. And then Max Thornley, God rest his soul, just passed away a few days ago. But those are the most prominent people in my life, especially in the hunting and dog world.
That's a good list. That's some good guys. Could you tell, now you're in Ohio, could you describe the hunting conditions where you live and maybe talk about what type of dog it takes to be successful there?
Yeah, here in Ohio, you have a mixture of a little bit of everything. There's some tree farms here, like, you can prominently get down in, in the Tennessee area. There's a few of those here, but it's mainly hardwoods or, wide open ground, some of our state ground, but a lot of them all full of rows, brush and briars. And so that's a lot of the ground. We have 6 different wildlife areas just within 30 minutes to an hour from my house, which totals up to almost 107,000 acres of wildlife that we get to run on. Unfortunately, they closed May 1st to September 1st, so that they do have some dog training areas you can go, and there's some good running there. But this time of year, you pretty much got to have some, private ground. So I got a couple private ground properties that I go. It's just, creek draws with a lot of briars and a lot of, this time of year, it's high weeds up about 4 foot high. So, but, for a successful dog here is, you got to be able, well, for all areas, you got to have a dog that can actually run a track, and have some brains. But what does well up here is, especially in the trials, is a dog with some foot, because there is some wide open ground, especially in the fall and winter time when you can really see. A dog can really get up and roll. A footy dog works well, but even a medium speed dog, I've had them both, medium speed and fast. As long as you can kill a rabbit or behind it, in front of a dog, you'll do well here in Ohio.
Now, doing this 23 years, I know one of your favorite dogs early on was the dog from the pound that you finished second with. But as you've done this over the years, you've bound to have had some favorite hounds. Could you tell us about a couple of them?
Yeah, so when I was running that little blue tick hound, little Z dog was the pup that I kept from that litter that me and Aaron made. The one dog that I ended up keeping overall, because typically I'll keep 2 pups out of a litter and then work them, and then I end up keeping the one and then either selling or getting rid of the other one. But the one I kept just happened to be my very first dog was his name was Hutton's Little Hunter, and he was, not often does somebody get their once-in-a-lifetime dog on their very first dog. Nice. And that's what he was. And I've been fortunate enough to have 3 of those dogs, those once-in-a-lifetime dogs. Him, which is Great Hunting Beagle Champion, Hutton's Little Hunter. He's also at the NHBA Hall of Fame. And then you got Hutton's Little Blue Maverick. He was a grand champion, placed 3 years in a row at the World, UKC World. And then I had a dog that's Hutton's Little Ditsy's Chippy. I could take that dog out to a Walmart parking lot and he would go find your rabbit. He was a hunting machine. And then obviously my 4th dog here which is, another once-in-a-lifetime dog is my Hutton's Big Bad Bailey, which is, what I won the Clash and the Nationals with last year. She's a family dog. She lives in the house. First hunting dog I've ever had in the house. And probably the smartest beagle I've ever been around. So those are my 4 dogs that really made hunting and trialing as fun as it's been over the 20 years. And all 4 of those dogs are connected. So that's all basically my bloodline, and so it carries it on. So
that is terrific. You have been blessed to have that many top hounds like that. That is fantastic.
Yeah, I've truly have had 3 dogs, those once-in-a-lifetime dogs. Wow. So, I've been blessed. So,
as you've been out there and you've hunted, and you're in one of the best spots in the country, lots of the big hunts a lot of them are held right there in Ohio, and for good reason. Yeah. It's wonderful up there. What are some of the best hounds you've hunted against?
Yeah, I got a little list here. So in the early days when I first got into it, when my hunter dog was up and running, there was a dog, Branko's Mystery Man, old Denny Dugan. He don't run UKC anymore. He's strictly an AKC guy. But that dog there I'd draw him pretty often, and it was back and forth, and I lost more than I won, against that dog. And then there was another dog, a 30-06 Little Mighty Ozzy. That dog would wear you out just watching him hunt. This dog had most unbelievable crazy hunt. He hunted on the run, and he would jump rabbits, and it was just crazy the way how that dog could hunt and jump that many rabbits on the run. And then I got my buddy Matt Turner. When we very first started hanging out together, he had a dog that he was running, Grand Champion, Grand Hunting Beagle Champion, Weed Eaters Fire River Blessing. He called her Gina. She was the sneakiest dog, but man, you wouldn't get a line on her because she was so sneaky. She'd sneak out front and take the front and just, blow the doors off the dogs and score lines all by herself. And then he had another dog that I ended up running against him in one of the eliminators. It was the semifinals. It was that Buck Lake Lola dog. Very nice female. It was her and my Maverick dog. We were in the semifinal running, and we just had a blast, and that dog just was smooth as butter, fast, and it was just really nice. And another dog, strong dog, is out from Missouri, was a C&M's Running Rebel. He was a red dog, tremendous hunt, ran a rabbit right, just really nice. And then, and then Vicky Bassett had a hound, very well known as a hurry-up bone collector. I've never seen a dog run and hunt so hard in a 90-plus degree weather when we used to have a Tritronics Triple Crown, and just to see that dog do what he did in a 90-degree weather and make it look like it was 60 degrees out was very impressive. So those are the top dogs that I could think of that really stood out to me over the years. And, there's more up-and-comers, coming.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Merritt has that, unfortunately the dog passed away, but that Eeyore dog, I did a bunch of winning. And then my buddy, Matt, he's got the Grand Hunting Beagle Champion whole shot. He's a pretty impressive dog. He's getting older, but I haven't seen anything run out in front of him yet. So, So yeah, those are the dogs that stand out to me over the years and currently.
Well, that's a good list. Now, I want you to think about, I call this the Mount Rushmore question. So, if you had a dream cast of 4 hounds that you could see go, and these could be past or present, these could be dogs from generations ago that aren't around any longer. If you could put 4 dogs together to watch them hunt, what would be the 4 dogs you'd want to see?
Well, this is kind of going to seem a little selfish, but it's not because anything other than I would like to see where my kennel has evolved in evolution. So it's actually four of my dogs, just from the beginning to now, and seeing the evolution of it, of my breeding of these dogs, which would be, my Hutton's Little Hunter, Hutton's Little Blue Maverick, my Chippy dog, and then Bailey, and actually getting all four of those dogs on the ground, and and seeing how they all stack against each other, because they never got to run against each other, because Hunter's been 15 years ago or so, and then and then Maverick. So 3 of the 4 dogs are dead. So just seeing the evolution of my breeding, and seeing if it's gotten better or worse, either way. So I think that would be pretty cool. But if, other than my own dogs, I would love to see my Bailey dog run against Mystery Man, Lola, and Brian Mead's Outback Double D, Dez, or Outback Booty. I think that would be a really fun cast to watch, just to see. I think highly of my Bailey dog right now, and just in that Booty and Brian Mead's Ghetto, Booty and Dez, they were probably the top-notch females for several years. I just like to be able to see where she stacked against those 2 dogs. So, yeah, that would be my choices.
That's a really good answer. So, going back to the first way you answered it, with kind of the generations of your hounds, which one of those 4 do you think would win in today's format?
Out of the 3 that have passed, or all 4?
All 4.
Bailey's still running.
Yeah.
Bailey's still running in today's. So I think, Hunter and Maverick were pretty much the same dog. I mean, but I would think Hunter would still be able to, even in today's format, be able to really compete and be, one of the top dogs in the country in today's format as well. The dog had wheels, man, and you wasn't going to get in the front of him very, very often, and and that's what it seems like it takes a lot nowadays. Is we bred for speed, and I think he had a clean speed, so he was clean, but he could flat out get up and roar. And he had a big old coonhound mouth, very distinct. And that's what I like. I like a dog with a good, distinct mouth. Very easy to call, especially when you're running against a different pack of dogs every day, and you get some dogs that sound alike. It makes it tough. So. I like a good, distinct mouth, which, all 4 of these dogs actually that I've talked about, they all had a pretty distinct mouth.
I'd love to see that cast. I really would. I think it'd be, I don't know. I just think that's really creative. I've never had anybody answer that question that way, and I love it. I love the thought of going back and just comparing where you were, where you are now, and kind of how things have changed, if any. And kind of see what you've been up to the last couple generations. That's pretty cool. That's a good way to answer it. So you've been doing this a while. You've been successful at the highest levels. You've won some big time hunts and placed in a lot of big hunts. Talk us through some memorable experiences that you've had in the hunts over the years.
Yeah, all the big hunts is always very memorable. You got the Big Bay hunts and the Nationals. Just the most memorable part of all of them, other than, the dogs doing well, is the amount of people and friends that I have gained over the last 23 years. I got friends all over this country because of this sport. And that is the most memorable thing out of all of this. And in the hunts, that first time, especially early in my trialing years, getting the place at your very first big hunt, you finally place in, you'll always remember that. It's and then just the competing. We're all competitive. We all want to win, but doing it the right way. And those are the ones that stand out as the hunts when you win something, a big hunt or whatever, and it's done right. You just go out and let the dogs do it. Those are the most the best memories. But when my hunter dog, he placed at the Nationals several times. The Nationals, that for a while was like that's the hunt I do the best. Worlds, not so much. But I did have my Maverick dog. He placed 3 years in a row. Not too many dogs do that. And then the Memorial Hunt is always a great hunt. It brings the hunters together. I've had the privilege to, my Chippy dog won it 1 year, and then I think he got second or something the next year. And then it was hot, and he's one of those dogs you could run him all day long. And it was 90 degrees and in the semifinals, and all the dogs got scratched for not hunting except for him. He still had 28 minutes to hunt, I believe, and they picked the dogs up, and he went about 2 minutes and jumped a rabbit and ran it the rest of the time out, and then made it to the finals. And I think that's the year he won it.
Nice.
So, and then obviously last year is the granddaddy of them all when Bailey turned around, won the Clash of Champions and the Nationals, all in the same weekend. That's I don't know if anything will ever top that.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That's pretty impressive. Now, I know that anyone who's hunted for the number of years that you have, crazy things happen when you're out and about. What's one of the craziest things you've ever seen while you've been out hunting?
Well, I got one for trialing, and then I got one just running here at the house. The one about trialing this was early on. The dogs were running the rabbit, and we had the rabbit. It stroked out across the field. Dogs were, a little bit behind, but they were getting it. And all of a sudden, a hawk came down and snatched the rabbit that the dogs were actually running. So, and then when they lose it, we're like, okay, now what do we? How do you score that?
Oh my!
You literally see the hawk take the rabbit. So, it was interesting, but it was also that's the craziest thing I've ever seen in a trial. And then the other one was just pleasure running here at the house. I was running a couple of dogs here at the house, and they were just pounding rabbit, and all of a sudden, it sounded like the dog was treed. I'm like, okay, what's going on? So I walk in there, and it was my hunter dog, or no, my Maverick dog. It was Maverick. He's at the bottom of this tree just barking up a storm. It was about, I don't know, probably 18-inch diameter tree. And I'm walking in there, and I'm fixing to light him up. I'm like, you surely ain't running a squirrel or anything, or? And he's just barking and barking. I get in there, and I walk to the backside of this tree, and there's a hole at the bottom of it. So the inside of this tree was hollowed out, and it wasn't, again, like I said, 18 inches. I'm like, surely not. So I flipped my cell phone. I turned my light on my cell phone. I flipped upside, and I stuck it in that tree on the camera, and I took a picture. Sure enough, about 4 feet up, you could see the cottontail of the rabbit. It climbed up the inside of that tree. So that's one of the craziest things I've seen, just, running here at the house, just pleasure running, So those would be the two that,
Those are good stories. Those are very good stories. If you could build the perfect dog for Brian Hutton, what would they look like, sound like, and hunt like?
Looks wise, I like a longer dog with the kind of the torso that kind of has the the bow in it, like it kind of humps up. Mm-hmm. I like a lengthier dog. I've had dogs that with that body style, which Bailey, Maverick, and Hunter, they both have that long torso with kind of humped up. I think that's a good recipe for giving them their foot. First off, you got to have brains. An intelligent dog will turn into a really good hunting dog. I like a blocky head. Not that very many of my dogs have a blocky head. I've kind of gotten into not by choice, but, 3 of my dogs are blue ticks. Bailey's kind of considered a blue tick. She's got the blue ticking on her belly and her legs, but she's got more brown and tricolor. But I do like a good tricolor dog, so I'm not. Collar really don't mean nothing to me. But, but I like that lengthy, long torso. I think that gives them a good long stride, get that foot up where, that's pretty much what, the UKC format, if you ain't got foot, then you're probably not going to fare too well. So I think I answered all the. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I like a big ball mouth, that distinct ball mouth, either if it's high pitch or a big coonhound mouth. I just love it.
Sign me up. I like those. That sounds like a good dog to me. When you're competing, is there anyone out there that you like to beat just a little bit more than everybody else?
Yeah. Well, right now it's in the past, back years ago, there used to be a fellow named Elwood Simmons. He was kind of my nemesis back then in the trialing world. So I just chuckled every time I got to beat that man in a trial. Yeah, but it wasn't out of fun. It was just because I was, he was my nemesis back then. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, I like whenever I can get a win over my best buddy Matt Turner, it gives me a smile because there's not very many times I get the run against him, let alone get the beat him. So Matt's usually all the time packing a pretty darn good hound. So if you're gonna beat him, you better be packing a hound. So I have to say my old buddy Matt, and that's just out of fun,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good-natured fun, like to beat up on your friends.
Yep.
I get it. If you could add or subtract or change any rule, what would it be?
Right now, it'd be the telemetry in UKC. I was part of the rules committee a few years ago, and it got shot down pretty quick. And the only reason I wanted to change for more of a safety thing for dogs, mm-hmm. Sometimes, you get drawn out to cast, it might be along a busy road or something, and, you get a dog run a rabbit, that rabbit could go anywhere. And if it goes toward that road, you're just hoping and praying that it don't go across that road and you can get to it before the dog goes across the road. And that's really the main thing. But I wish they would change it. And if they ever do, what they need to do is just change the hunt. You got 30 minutes to catch a dog. Just take it down to 15, because if you got the telemetry, you should be able to catch your dog a lot quicker. Mm-hmm. And it's mainly because of the safety thing. There's a lot of pushback with it being, you can train a dog to bark on a tone or come back if a deer run the deer. And they're just overthinking it. If they would just think about it on the safety side of a dog, mm-hmm. I think it would benefit the sport.
I like it.
And some people don't. There's some houndsmen out there that don't run the format that I run because of that reason. Because mm-hmm. other formats you can run your telemetry, mm-hmm. your shocker. So yeah, that's the main one that I would change. Mm-hmm. And I think over the years, we've changed too much too in the rules. Well, I wish it would just go back to when I first got into it. Just go back to those rules. To me, it seemed a lot funner. But that's me. I'm a little old school with it. So
nothing wrong with that at all. As you've been at these hunts, I think sometimes we just tend to gossip and talk about the bad things that have happened during these hunts. But a lot of I've seen more good things happen while I've been out on cast than bad. What's the nicest thing somebody's ever done for you during competition? And that could be at a bench show too, but either in competition in the field or on the bench. What's the nicest thing anyone's ever done for you?
Well, the nicest thing is back when we had the Tri-Tronics Triple Challenge, it was booked, and the company I work for, there's sometimes you find out on Thursday if you're working Friday, so or Saturday. I'm sorry. Well, I had a buddy of mine run my dog on the Friday because I work on Friday. Well, then they turned around and scheduled me Saturday, so I was going to miss this whole entire hunt. And I had a buddy of mine just go out and not run his dog and ran my hunter dog because he was in the running. And he ended up, I think, getting second or overall. I don't know. He done very well in the hunt. So, and I've had a couple incidents of that, where I've had to work or whatever. My buddies they would run my dog instead of their own. I'll take Matt Turner, for instance. If it wasn't for Matt Turner last year taking Bailey out to the Clash Regional, Bailey wouldn't have had the opportunity to go out and win the Clash of Champions last year. So he took her out and ran her and did well. Ended up not running his dog that he initially took out for himself to run because he won his cast too. He ended up having one of our other buddies handle his dog while he handled mine, and he got her through to the top 32. And then so if it wasn't for him, she wouldn't even had a chance to win that 10,000. So that's what comes to my mind with that question is there's a lot of good houndsmen out there who will put their dogs aside to run your dog, or they'll not run their dog to do a judge a winner's pack back when we had a winner's pack, just so that there was a judge. So those things, they're, like you said, there's a lot of more good things than there are bad things in our sport.
Now, I hope you took poor old Matt Turner out for a steak dinner or something for doing that for you.
Oh, yeah. He got a nice diamond-plated dog box, too. So,
oh, that's sweet.
So, yeah, he's, we chuckle about it. He gets on me a little bit every once in a while about it, but he's truly a good friend to me.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it. It really does. If you need help with a hound-related challenge, and this could be a health challenge, a training issue, or even advice on breeding, it could be anything hound-related, and you could only call one person, who are you going to call?
It'd be Matt Turner.
Yeah.
I know his name's popping up a lot, and people are probably going to razz me about it, but that's my buddy, and he's been in this sport for probably 30 years. I don't know. He's been in it since he's a kid, so he knows the rules inside and out, like the back of his hand. He's been, around dogs most of his life. He breeds dogs. He trains dogs. So that's the guy I go to.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite part of the country that you like to hunt in?
Yeah, I do. Ohio's pretty darn good, but I used to love going to the Eliminator down in Tennessee. All those Christmas tree farms. First time I ever went there, my dogs didn't know how to hunt a Christmas tree farm. They're like, "Why'd you bring me here?" But over time they learned it, and it was always a fun place to hunt. I've been to Missouri a few times. Had great run, plenty of game out there. Unfortunately, the World Hunt last year, they had the worst drought ever. So the running then, because I was really looking forward to having some good running, but it didn't take place. But it was no fault of Missouri; it was just a drought. But typically, you have phenomenal running there. And one of my newest favorite spots is up there by the Magenica Beagle Club out there in Indiana. Around those reservoirs, there's plenty of game, and it's just a lot of fun. There's no shortage of rabbits up there, so it's really a nice place to run.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a favorite club that you like to go to?
Yeah. Out of state ones is always enjoyed the Doe Valley Beagle Club down in Tennessee. And again, like right now, I enjoy going out to Indiana, the Magenica Bagel Club. I like the Waynesburg Bagel Club out there in PA. Don't get to go out there as much as I would like to. So those would be the three, other than our local clubs. But those would be the top three out of state that I've enjoyed over the years.
Mm-hmm. Good choices. If you were asked for advice from somebody that was considering getting into rabbit hunting, what advice would you give them?
You talking rabbit hunting or trialing or both?
Just both, yeah.
Both? So just in the rabbit hunting is one, finding, especially if you're going to go out and get a pup or whatever, go out and get a pup from a breeder that's credible, not somebody who's just out to make a buck off of a pup. Or if you're going out to buy a dog that's started or running, go out and do your homework. Go out and watch the dog run, see how they perform hunting, handling. And if you're going to hunt, maybe take a gun and shoot over. Make sure they're not gun shy. Get a dog from a breeder or a dog that's finished from somebody that's credible. That is actually somebody who has actually put the time in the dog training or in their breeding program. That's what I recommend in that. And then the trialing, other than, the dogs, picking the dog, getting a good dog or a good line of dog, is really learning the rules before you get into actually trialing. Read it, go out, find somebody who does the trials and maybe do some practice casts, just you and your buddies, and kind of go through some scenarios. And then also when you do go to your first trial, don't be afraid to ask questions, especially if you get a credible. I enjoy when I get beginners, because I'll tell them right at the beginning, hey, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. That's, as a former state rep, that I still think it's my duty to, tell my knowledge, help, the new beginners to make sure that, one, they're treated right, and two, that we need people to fall in love with our sport, because it is slowly going the direction that we don't want it to. And I think that's part of it. There are some guys out there that see new people and they'll take advantage. Me, I'd rather see the new guy win than myself. So, I've been known to be too nice in cast, but you know what? If it gets somebody to come back again, I'm willing to do that. So that's how our sport's going to live on. So yeah, that's the things I would, I think would.
Good advice.
Be my advice. Yep.
Good advice. What's the biggest challenge facing our future hunters?
There's a couple things. One is hunting ground getting less and less. Here, like I said, I'm fortunate enough to have over 106,000 acres just within 30 minutes to an hour. But again, it's closed during the summer for breeding and all that. But hunting ground, more and more of the ground around here gets leased. Deer hunters. I don't like saying this, but I'll say it, is you get more and more city people getting interested in hunting, and then they'll go out and buy a chunk of ground, and then they think, a dog running a rabbit's going to run all the deer out. So, I lost 100 acres just literally eighth a mile down the road from my house, which was my honey hole, and had a guy, city boy, that got into hunting, had money, bought him some ground, and, I asked him if I could run dogs, and he's like, nah, those dogs will run my deer off. I don't want nobody on there. So a lot of that's happening, so we're losing more and more hunting ground. And then the other thing I think that's, hurting is, unfortunately, the registries or the hunts now. Back when I first got into it, like I said earlier in the podcast, is, you have a world qualifier, you'd have 15 to 20 casts. A regular small hunt, you have 8 to 10 casts. You're lucky now to have more than 2 to 3 casts. And I think it's just changed. I think the one is too easy to make a dog a champion. 5 cast win back in the old days. It used to be you had to have a first place win plus a certain amount of points accumulated, which I think, if I remember right, it was 100 points. So I think it's just too easy to make a champion, and the the small hunts just don't have the attendance like it did back then. I know back when I first got into it, UKC was privately owned, and now it's owned by, I believe, investors. So these big hunts, the prize packages back when I first got into it, I mean, you had all your prizes at the big hunts. You went home with a truckload, and it's not like that anymore. It's the prize packages have diminished. Luckily, I helped come up with the Clash of Champions. I think that's what kind of is keeping it going right now, and especially in UKC. There's something, at $10,000, that's a big thing to go for. That's the biggest thing to go out and win right now in trial and for the Beagles. So that's pretty much what's keeping the Hound and Hunter going in UKC, in my opinion. So, it used to be the bucket list, and it's still my bucket list, is win the world championship. But and hopefully one day I will. But when it comes down to the what you're winning, that Clash of Champion is that's the biggest prize package. And I believe the Clash of Champions should also become a title on your dog. The biggest thing you can win right now, and that Clash of Champion title don't go in that dog's name, which I think it should. But so that's the couple things that I think that is hurting the sport. Hunting land, and then I think our registry has kind of changed a little bit in promoting our hunts, and it's sometimes it's hard to find where there is a hunt. You got to go on a website. Back then, we used to have the American Beagler and Better Beagling. That stuff is no longer around. So, kind of the interest is kind of dying down, and we got to figure out a way to grow it, because I'm afraid in 10, 15 years the format that I run may not be around.
Well, you've been doing this for over 2 decades, and one of the things that crossed my mind to ask you about was, why do you keep doing it? What is it about rabbit hunting that just keeps you going back?
It's just the 2 things. I've got a lot of friends out of this sport all over the country. That's the main one. And then just the love of the sport, of watching these dogs, the ability they have to be able to do what they do day in and day out. And it's so impressive to me. The rabbit is one of the least scented fur-bearing animals, and these beagles make it look like they're staring at it sometimes, when they run these things. It's just amazing, the ability of these dogs. That, and just the fellowship, getting to travel around, seeing new places, new areas of the country. It's been a blessing and all that. So that's what keeps me going in it. I know I've taken a back seat for the last 3 or 4 years, coaching my daughter. But, that time will pass, and then I'll be able to hit a little more. I probably won't get into it as heavy as I was back when I was chasing the point series and all that. But you'll see me at more hunts here when the softball thing passes. Like I said, my daughter's only going to be young for so long, and I get to watch her play ball. These dogs will always be here, so I'll always get back to it. But I love it. It's been my hobby. It's the main hunting thing I do. I don't even hardly deer hunt or anything. I'd rather go run a dog than go sit in a tree stand. So it's just something about it, man. There's nothing like it. It's my stress reliever from work, to be honest with you. If I have a rough day at work or whatever, nothing relieves that stress more than just taking a few dogs out and just listening to them run.
Good answer.
So,
Brian, as we wrap up, and I'm very thankful for you sharing so much of your time with us, Is there anything that I didn't ask you about that I should have, or is there anything else you want to cover or promote?
No, not really. I think we need to promote our youth, which, our youth has been pretty good here lately, but, that's what's going to drive our sport, the future of rabbit hunting is, getting more and more youth into it. So I encourage anybody that has somebody young that loves the outdoors, introduce them to, rabbit hunting and running dogs and all that. Because, like I said, Max Thornsey, an old timer, just passed, and there's more and more of that going on throughout the years. So we need to really invest into our youth, and UKC and NHBA, they do a pretty darn good job with that, with promoting the youth, and they'll continue to do that. But I think as just individual hunters, I think we need to get kids more involved in it if we can, and that's what's going to keep our sport going is the future. So
that's right.
Of these young folks. So other than that, no, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I enjoy talking dogs, hunting, anything beagles. So you covered a pretty good array of different areas. So I really enjoyed it.
Well, Brian, I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. You got a lot going on between the hounds and work and kids and ball games and everything else. And I know that you've been very generous with me today, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, and God bless you, Sam.
God bless you too. Thank you for listening to Buff in the Rough. And remember to like and subscribe if you want to be notified when we have new content available. And please send comments and suggestions to buffintherough@gmail.com.